Hi, thanks for watching. So, a little bit of fun this morning. I'm actually getting ready for work. I work from home. Um, I know I haven't posted anything in a minute, and that's because this semester at school has been really kicking my ass. I don't know what keeps convincing me that taking 5 courses and also working full time and having 3 middle schoolers and other obligations is conducive to anything, but I keep doing it, and here I am. But this semester has been really, really brutal. I have a C, and by the end of the semester, I might have 2 C's, um, which is terrible. I'm usually an AB student. I'm not. I'm not trying to brag. That's just who I am. Like I know. Like I've had people tell me C's get degrees, and that's fine. But I think it's maybe something that I hang on to because of how my dad raised me. But um, and I know I haven't posted any reviews, book hauls, nothing really lately. And talking about school, this is actually what I'm here to talk about today. So, my dad read to me every night as a child, and um, he did that until I could read on my own. And when I was really young, when we lived in Maine, my parents were going to a Southern Baptist church. And so, nothing against any particular religion or denomination. However, if you are familiar with the Southern Baptist denomination, you may be aware of how strict some of the parents can be with their children, um, which I'm not saying is a good thing or a bad thing. But that says a lot about, the kind of things that I could watch or the kind of things I could listen to when I was real, really young, when my parents were going to the Southern Baptist Church in Maine. Um, but they never told me what I could and couldn't read. And so, like, after I learned to read on my own, I mean, yeah, I would read, like, the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew. I enjoyed the Hardy Boys more than Nancy Drew, but um, I remember reading, like, Dean Koontz and Victoria Holt, Mary Stewart, I think, when I was, like, 10, 9 or 10. And so my parents never told me what I could and couldn't read, even when they were associated with a Southern Baptist church, and they were a little bit stricter than they were later on in my life. They never told me what I could and couldn't read. And so I read. And I was that weirdo child who, even in elementary school, I would go to the library when we were having the reading challenges, and they would give us pencils and, um, sorry, I'm signing into all of my stuff at work. Like rulers and pencil top erasers, and Pizza Hut would give you a personal pan pizza. I was the one who would go to the library on recesses and lunches so I could get my book count up. And in middle school, I didn't really start at the library too much when I was in middle school because that was the time where we moved from Maine to Texas. It was a huge culture shock for me. 6th grade was just some of the worst times of my life. But we moved into another location in town in San Antonio when I went to 7th grade, and my friend Araceli and I, we went to the library at Sul Ross Middle School. I think originally I was there to play Oregon Trail because I absolutely loved that game. But she started reading a series of books, and I think she read a series by Terry Goodkind. And I started reading a series of books, which was The Wheel of Time, which completely changed my reading life forever because I've been hooked on fantasy ever since. Whether it's supernatural or magical realism or high fantasy or epic fantasy, like cozy fantasy, like I've been hooked on fantasy ever since. So thank you, Robert Jordan. And thank you, Araceli, because I don't remember what it was, why we picked up these books. I don't remember. I think we were just browsing the shelves, and she was like, "This sounds interesting," and we were both the same area. I don't know. I don't remember, but that's how I got started on Wheel of Time. In high school, I didn't spend time at the high school library nearly as much as I probably should have, but I would go to the library on Callahan and read just weird off the wall topics like meteorology and books on ball lightning. Um, And there was this library in San Antonio. It was called the Pink Enchilada. Or, well, I called it the Pink Enchilada. Somebody called it the Pink Enchilada before me, and I picked it up. It was the Central Library in downtown San Antonio. It was like 5 stories, and in the basement they always had book sales in the basement, and then they had a blimpie down there. To me, it was like this glorious, like heavenly type place, and I love libraries. And so as the natural progression goes with somebody who spent a lot of their time in libraries growing up and who absolutely adores books and reading and learning too, obviously. I do love learning. Unfortunately, I'm the type of person who's like, if you tell me to do something, I'm going to hate doing it the whole time you're telling me to do it. But I do love learning. And so in 2018, when my father died, like he died in January, and I was devastated. He died of ALS. We had taken care of him like the last, like, I think it was 7 or 8 months that he had lived after he got the diagnosis. It was devastating, and it was brutal to watch, and it was so heartbreaking, and it was so fast. And I was devastated, so I buried myself in books. I read, Goodreads says 55, but I know I read more than that. I think it was like 58 novels that year. And I just buried myself in books. And at some point, my husband John says, you should go to school to be a librarian, because San Antonio was hiring librarians at the time. And I was like, no, I was like, I can't go to school and work and kids and all that stuff. And he was like, you can. He's like, I'll help you. And so I applied for Northwest Vista College. I did my associates at the community college. We moved to Ohio in 2019. In 2020, I started going to Ohio State University, and I'm working on my bachelor's degree, which is what I'm still doing because things keep popping up that, I kind of took like 2 years off or something from school. But my end goal was always to get my master's in library and information science and be a librarian. That was always my end goal. And unfortunately, there's been some things coming up in the last couple of years that have really sucked the joy out of my dream. And so, like, you hear about, these, like, trans story hours and people who don't agree with it, calling in bomb threats to libraries. There are some bomb threats to some libraries in Pennsylvania, I believe. And then you have the other side who's like, well, why are you letting them bully you into not doing it? And now we have this whole new thing with the president of the ALA. And if you're not familiar with the ALA, it's the American Library Association. If you've ever considered being a librarian and going for your master's in library and information science, this is what you want to be accredited by. Like the schools that you go to get your master's in library and information science, you want them to be accredited by the ALA. Because for the most part, public libraries across the United States from sea to shining sea require an ALA accredited degree. But the president of the ALA, when she got it, as anybody would who got to be the president of the ALA, and she was young when she got it too. I think she was in her 40s, maybe. But she was excited. Who wouldn't be excited? I mean, if you're a bookworm, if you're a library nut, who wouldn't be excited? I mean, it's like the pinnacle dream. Like, you're not just volunteering at a library. You're not just working at a library. You're not just a library. You're the head of the AL freaking A, right? So she takes to Twitter and she posts something along the lines of, I can't believe a Marxist lesbian made it to president-elect of the ALA. And then she went on to say that her mom's proud of her. She loves her mom. And, oh my God, the fallout. It didn't start with Louisiana. I think it started with another state, and I might be throwing Missouri under the bus. It might not have been Missouri. But in my head, I'm thinking Missouri. It might be Montana. I don't know. I think it was an M state. But they started pulling their associations with the ALA. And then I got an email from Book Riot, and Book Riot is talking about how Louisiana is criminalizing people associating with the ALA. And I'm like, but how does that work? How does that work? How do you have librarians if they're not accredited by the ALA because the ALA accredits the Master's in Library and Information Science degree? Like, I don't quite understand it. So I had to read a little bit more into it, and that's when I found that this is all stemming from a Marxist lesbian president. And from what I remember going to school, and I didn't like politics. I still don't like politics. I hate politics. It makes me bleh. I don't like politics. I don't like hearing about politics. I don't like people talking about it. I hate it when people are like debating their politics and like yelling at each other. I just it irks me, and it makes me nauseous. I hate it. But from what I remember, you're allowed to be right wing, left wing, independent. You're allowed to have your own beliefs. You're allowed to be Christian. You're allowed to be Muslim. You're allowed to be atheist. You're allowed to talk about these things, even if they say that it's rude to talk about these things. You're allowed to talk about these things. You're allowed to be. And that's one of the greatest things about being in the United States, isn't it? Right? That you're allowed to be. But unfortunately, because of how some people believe and how some people disagree and how other people agree and all this bullshit, Louisiana has made it a criminal offense for librarians to spend public money and anything associated with the ALA. And they're pulling their associations with the ALA. And they're not the only state to be doing this. And so what was once Sanctuary, because libraries aren't just books. Libraries are places where homeless people can go when it's freezing outside, or they can go to get some water when it's like 107 degrees in San Antonio with no end in sight. It's a place where children whose home lives are chaos all the time can go and get that peace and quiet to study. It's a place where people who don't live in a place where maybe they have constant access to the internet, or maybe they can't afford the internet, can go and use the resources to do the research that they need for whatever it is that they're doing, for work, for school, for their own personal enrichment. It's in a sanctuary. And it's being pulled out from under us because of this bullshit. It used to be a place where you could go and everything on the outside world was just not there anymore. Everybody from all walks of life, all religion, all political affiliations, they would go, and this would be where they could just immerse themselves in stories, in tales, in information. And that's not what it is anymore. And so I am just about to finish my bachelor's. I am in my 40s, and this dream is being pulled out from under me. And I don't know what I'm going to do now. There's lots of stuff you can do with your master's in library and information science. I can work at a museum, which sounds exciting. There's lots of exciting jobs out there that interest me. But my goal was to be a librarian. And with librarians getting death threats and being pulled this way and pulled that way, and the politics and everything just being forced on the librarians and forcing them to choose between one group and another instead of just being there for information and for quiet and for sanctuary. You're ruining something beautiful. You're ruining it. You're ruining it. Please stop. I'm hoping by the time I finish my master's in library and information science that this is not going to be anything anymore, but I have a feeling that this is one of those things that once it starts, it just keeps going. It's like a snowball. That's what I wanted to, that's just what I wanted to put here. You know, I'm in school. It was going one direction, and now I don't know what direction I'm going anymore, because, and you know, master's degrees are expensive. You know, I already have student loans for my bachelor's. And the thought of going forward, you know, paying all that money, taking out the loans that I'm going to need to go to school and get my master's, and potentially not be able to do the thing that I wanted to do, the thing that I thought I was going to love and, you know, be able to do for the rest of my life. Because I work on the phones and I hate it. I hate it. I hate being on the phones. I'm going to die on the phones. I've worked on the phones for so long. I hate it. And I don't know what I'm going to do now. I know that I'm being dramatic. I'm being dramatic because there's so many other things to do, but that's what I wanted to do. And please stop fucking up the library system. Please stop fucking with something beautiful that was not in any stance. It was, a library isn't Republican, a library isn't Democratic, a library isn't Christian, a library isn't Scientologist, a library isn't Muslim, a library is a sanctuary, and you're ruining it. You're burning our sanctuaries down with your bullshit. Please stop. Please stop. But that's all I have to say. Thanks so much for watching.